Live from the hippest spot online, you've arrived at the Pop Culture Juke Joint, the only weekly podcast you'll need for intelligent showbiz chats. Located just up the street from the Peach Pit and down that dark, damp alley behind Fonzie's Garage, you'll find former newsman and current hard-boiled crime writer Anthony Venutolo, chatting with guests about everything from old-school classics to new-school staples. So head up to the bar, grab a drink, and settle in here at the Pop Culture Juke Joint. Now, your host, Anthony Venutolo.
Welcome to another episode of the Pop Culture Juke Joint, where each week we delve into one particular topic of pop culture, be it music, books, comic books, media, you name it. This week, Jack Lugo and I are going to have a great discussion about, what I think is probably the best documentary of the year I've seen thus far. And I am talking about HBO's The Defiant Ones, which delves into the storied career of rapper, entrepreneur Dr. Dre, and record mogul, record producer, visionary Jimmy Iovine. We discussed the documentary at length. It is 4 parts. It is currently airing on HBO, and I imagine it is streaming on its HBO Go and HBO Now platforms. So, you know what? If you're a fan of music, if you're a fan of creativity, if you are a fan of rap, rock, pop music, it doesn't matter. This is going to be a documentary for you, and it is going to be a show you're going to want to listen to. So grab that drink, sit back, relax, enter the juke joint. So, a couple weeks ago, I was driving to work, and Jimmy Iovine was on the Howard Stern show.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've heard him interviewed there before, but I didn't hear this most recent one.
Yeah, and I have a really long commute, so I settled in, I had my coffee, and I knew I was going to be in for a really good conversation. Number one, because Howard is an amazing interviewer, and two, he always has on people who, you actually really learn from.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean,
a lot of Howard's interviews are about success, and there's success stories, and Jimmy Iovine's was just, pick an era. And it's a story of success. I mean, from his engineering days to his producing days to his entrepreneurial days. So when I saw the trailer for The Defiant Ones about a month ago, I was gobsmacked because I knew that this was going to be a documentary that I was going to savor, and I did, and I knew it was going to be chock full of amazing stories, and it was, because as I already explained, it's not only about Jimmy Iovine, who is a record producer and entrepreneur, but it's about Dr. Dre and how, rapper Dr. Dre, and how their paths crossed, and even though they were really different guys from kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, they were really two peas in a pod, and a lot more similar than one might think. And they really created an empire, correct?
They did. On the surface, it really does seem like two disparate stories, but the documentary does a great job of sort of putting the pieces together in a way that, you could see how their stories, even though they come from different backgrounds, that they're parallels there that you can observe, in both stories. And I think that's one of the strengths of this documentary, is that, there's certain peaks and valleys that each of them have, and they kind of, you could sort of see where, there are certain parallels you can draw between their careers, and then obviously they do eventually get together, and once Dr. Dre is trying to sign on a label to put out The Chronic, Jimmy Iovine already has Interscope, and that's it goes from there. And obviously the documentaries kind of bookended with the huge multi-billion-dollar deal with Apple and Beats But yeah, the stories themselves are they're very compelling stories. I mean, you kind of look at them in a way that, like, with Jimmy Iovine, you have that rich kind of rock background of like legends. Like he not only works with the legends, but he actually had an influence, and he was instrumental with some of the most iconic work of like Tom Petty and Bruce Springsteen. And you're sort of watching this and you're like, wow, people would just, there are people who would just kill to just be a fly on the wall during the Born to Run sessions.
Right. And well, the thing that, and like I said before, I mean, it's not just how Jimmy Iovine was involved with maybe one or two great rock albums. This is a guy who was involved with like countless rock productions. And as you said, I mean, just to be a fly on the wall during the recording of the Born to Run sessions, I remember winning that album. I'm going to date myself here, Jack. I won Born to Run, the album, on the Seaside Heights Boardwalk in Seaside Heights, New Jersey. Now, believe me, okay, this is when actually we, used records to listen to things, and I still had that album to this day. So, thinking back how, Jimmy Iovine engineered that album, it's just mind-boggling in the stories. And it's great to see Bruce show up in this,
Oh, yeah.
And everyone shows up. I mean, Stevie Nicks, Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty, who am I missing? Bono, my God.
Yeah. You too. Those are just the artists that he produced, and then obviously he goes on to the business side of things. But yeah, I mean, this is a guy who basically, he was sweeping the floor, and then the next day he's working as like a substitute engineer for John Lennon. You never hear of that. It's like an impossible dream story.
It's like the Italian guys that ran the recording house asked him to come in for Easter Sunday, and he came in on Easter Sunday, and lo and behold, who's sitting there but John Lennon? And it was like a great moment. It was like a great moment for him, because he knew, he was about to make his bones here, and if he did a good job, he was in, and he pulled out. He pulled it through. He was really good, right?
Yeah, I mean, and he kind of knew. I mean, he knew how to influence artists. I mean, he knew how to he knew what people were looking for, what would be popular, how to market things, what would be, not just successful, but like insanely successful. I mean, the story about, Bruce and, the Patti Smith song, the song that ended up becoming a Patti Smith song because the night, you get to hear that story, you get to hear stories, about his time working with Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks. And, he almost tried to do a similar thing with Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks. And, the song became a success, but obviously there were, other like issues going on as well. It goes into his personal life. He was dating Stevie Nicks, and he had to almost hide his relationship with Stevie Nicks from time to time.
He hit her in the basement. He hit her in the basement. What is going on?
It's like these kind of like, you wouldn't, and this is just he grew up on Long Island. He was the son of a longshoreman. Not someone that you think would, had the pedigree or was raised to sort of be born into this music industry and have this kind of access and success. But I think that the ultimate thing that you get out of this documentary is that, both Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, they both have, a talent for finding other talent. I mean, they when they hear someone who they believe, that they believe in, they sort of put everything they've got into that talent, and they do whatever it takes to sort of, get them to where they need to be. I mean, you see that, just going into the Dre side of it, you see that with Eminem, you saw that with, Snoop Doggy Dogg, and, you get to see that, there's just so much, I mean, that's also just another, thing that it seems like an innate quality that they both have. It's just and this I mean, obviously we're both sort of in awe of these guys because of how they shape the music industry.
Sure. I mean, shape the industry, but shape the culture.
Yeah.
And it's funny where this documentary paints Jimmy Iovine as a schmoozer, a wheeler dealer, a guy that's going to get what he wants. It portrays Dre as almost like this mystical magician when it comes to music, and how this guy can take sound and manipulate it and just create, instant classics. Time and time and time again. I mean, this guy just isn't a rapper who has a soundboard. This is a guy who is pretty much a musical genius, right?
Yeah, and he has like just about all the tools, not just the on the rapping side. He knows how to produce. He knows how to get the exact sound that he wants, and that's not something that everyone can do. I mean, even people who are successful in the music industry, they don't have those skills.
Do you feel that the cadence of this documentary was distracting? And what I mean by that is, they're telling the story of two men here, okay?
Yeah.
At kind of two different time periods. I mean, because Jimmy Iovine started much earlier in the 70s. So, it's going back and forth up until the point where they cross paths in the 90s. But did you feel that it was distracting? Whereas, we get a 5 minutes of Jimmy Iovine, 6 minutes of Dre, 4 minutes of Iovine, 15 minutes of Dre. So, how did that affect you?
It did. I mean, at first, the first couple of episodes, once you're into one story, it kind of jumps to another story. But after a while, you kind of get used to it. It does feel organic. And like I said before, I think there are some parallels that, when, Jimmy Iovine is talking about, the period of time in the 80s where things, like after working with U2 and, he was kind of like, exhausted with the music industry and kind of frustrated, and you see, even though it wasn't occurring at the same time, he also jumped to Dre and dealing with the end of NWA, trying to propel himself to his own success on his own terms, and also the personal stuff that they deal with. Dre lost his brother early on, and Jimmy Iovine lost his father, and and I think, even though you're telling the stories of two different men, you sort of see how, there are some similar, there are some parallels that the documentary kind of weaves into, that I think are actually work, do the documentary a benefit and a service to anyone who kind of watches it.
Yeah, I think my favorite episode out of this is a 4-episode series, docu-series, and the episodes run between an hour and 15 minutes. I think my favorite episode had to be episode 3.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know, maybe because of the subject matter, but episode 3 kind of deals with the turmoil of that whole East Coast, West Coast rap war. And, I remember, I was just out of college, in grad school, I think. So I saw that firsthand. I remember watching the Source Awards that night when Suge Knight completely dissed Diddy, Sean Puffy Combs.
Yeah.
And it was almost, I was like, oh my God, is he calling out Puff right now? and then by the time Snoop comes out, I swear to God, I was nervous. I thought there was going to be like a riot, and there almost sort of was. Flash forward a couple years, where we get the murder of Tupac in Vegas.
Yeah.
And again, I remember I was so young. I was at the newspaper that night, and I remember when that came over, a lot of people, and this is what the documentary didn't really go into too much detail about, but he got shot on fight night, which was a Saturday night. It was a Tyson fight. I believe he didn't die until like 3 or 4 days later.
Oh, really? I don't remember.
Yeah.
It doesn't really go into it in the documentary.
Like he was in severely critical condition, but I think he died like 2 or 3 days later. By that point he was like on a ventilator, and there was no chance of him really recovering. But they made it seem like he was shot and killed instantly, and he wasn't. He was in the hospital a couple of days. I love that whole period. They didn't really touch, or maybe did I miss it? But I don't think they touched on the murder of Biggie after that.
Not
right?
at all. I was looking for that, and I mean, I'm not. Hip hop is kind of like, I respect it, but it's not a genre that I kind of gravitate towards. But I was looking. I did watch the Straight Outta Compton movie, and I really enjoyed it. It's a great movie, even if you're not into hip hop. But I was looking for the death of Biggie Smalls, and the murder of Biggie Smalls, rather, and that was not touched upon at all. And I think I read somewhere that actually P. Diddy or Puff Combs, whatever he's going by now, he is producing a documentary about that. But I would have thought that because it's sort of something that happened in the aftermath of the death of Tupac, and obviously there are implications. Obviously, nothing's been confirmed that Suge Knight was involved in that. Again, I'm probably like the least qualified person to discuss this.
But let me just tell you. Let me just tell you that I've seen a couple documentaries on that whole era, and specifically about the murder of Tupac and then Biggie, and it gets super complex. It isn't as cut and dry as people would think. There's a real reason why this case is still unsolved today. How crazy is that?
That is
How crazy is that? Well, I mean, on one hand, it was pre 9/11, where you didn't have cameras everywhere like you have now.
But you still have forensics.
You still have forensics, I guess, but as a little sidebar aside here, there was a long time ago, there was a feature film in development about this case, about the Tupac case, and guess who was attached to either, I don't know, direct it or be involved in some way, but Sylvester Stallone.
Really?
Yep.
That is fascinating. He kind of has his hands in everything. Because isn't he doing something with Edgar Allan Poe? Or
yes. That was his pet project, was getting the life story of Edgar Allan Poe off the ground. Who knew?
Who knew?
There's still time.
There are still many, opportunities for him to win the gold.
Exactly. Well, no, he just wanted to direct it and write it. He didn't want to actually star in it.
Well, he could win the gold for directing, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. So episode 3 of the Defiant Ones for me really, I think was my favorite, because I think it had the most conflict, and that was a time where gangster rap and hip hop, it was kind of coming into its own. I mean, this was it. This was it was here to stay, and it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I owned the Chronic. I loved the Chronic. I cranked the Chronic every day, Jack, in my car, on my CD player in my car. For me, it was one of those definitive albums. So I really, really responded to this. And I think the reason why I think that this series is so good is because, like Ken Burns Jazz, it reflects on where we were at the time in the country.
Yeah.
And that's what this reminded me of. When they were talking about, the rise of NWA, they were really talking about what was going on in California and in Compton, and in the wake of Rodney King and the turmoil that was there. It was kind of the story of the era, and that's That's why I love when good music documentaries delve into the art and the music. It usually also reflects upon where we were as a country.
Yeah, I mean, culturally, it sort of reflects, like the youth of that community, and how it was something for them that that represented them. I mean, it gave them a voice, and it's it's something that and when you watch a documentary like this, and the film Straight Outta Compton, you get to kind of understand a little bit more about what was going on at that time, and what they were responding to, what the artists were drawing influences from, and what the audience that bought their records, what they were what resonated for them. So it is a real education, even if you're not someone who's into hip hop, or if it's not something that you're into. I still would highly recommend that you watch this. I mean, and also part 3 on the other side with the Jimmy Iovine, you do get Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails, and how that came about, and how Jimmy Iovine just sort of they called I guess either the owner or the CEO of the other record company that he was signed on to, Trent Reznor, and how he was in the bathroom pretty much every day calling this guy at 6 a.m. trying to get either figure out a way to make Nine Inch Nails available to sign, or to partner with the other label. You get to see a real, really how the business side of the music industry works. And I think that's, when it gets into like the Interscope Records part of it, I really found that really fascinating.
Yeah, I will say this, that this was directed beautifully by Alan Hughes. The sequences that he puts together, I would say each episode has about maybe one montage of sorts, and they just get footage from where was this footage coming from? It was just they had it all from all the Dr. Dre recording sessions, the Bruce sessions, the
Stevie
early
Nicks and Tom
Stevie
Petty.
Nicks and the early Eminem sessions, and it just thrown together, frenetically. It was just amazing to watch. And
in part 3, I think there's that montage where it's to the music of the Nine Inch Nails song. How does that go? I want to F you like an animal, and it's really Dre telling his story to that music, and you hear it goes back and forth between Dre's story and a montage of video sequences from that song, and that was a great segment to watch.
And there was also a montage with Marilyn Manson's Beautiful People, that video always freaked me out to begin with. Let me just say, if you ever want to see disturbing images, watch that video. You will be scarred for life. I remember when, as an aside, Marilyn Manson was performing at one of the MTV award shows, and Chris Rock was hosting.
Yeah.
As soon as Marilyn Manson, he was singing that song. As soon as Marilyn Manson was done, Chris Rock comes out and says to the audience, "Run to church."
I think I remember that.
So, that's the feeling I get when I watch these videos. But again, that's a great feeling, and that's the feeling that Jimmy Iovine was kind of trying to convey, and he let his artists do their thing.
Yeah.
Okay. He left Eminem alone. Okay.
Exactly. And that's what every artist really wants. I mean, all the great ones anyway. I mean, they want to be left alone, do their art, and then when they're ready, just sort of, hopefully it's successful.
That's what Trent Reznor said. I think it was in that 3rd episode or whatever. He was just leave us alone, and then you could just charge, make as much money as you want, but just leave us alone. But funny enough, though, I mean, on the flip side of that, when, you have all the time in the world, there was a sequence or when Dre was kind of talking about deadlines and how they're the worst thing for an artist.
Yeah.
Because you don't know when inspiration is going to come, and as a creator, and this is a guy who kind of scrapped his album. What was it? What
Detox.
Was it called?
Yeah, it's still
Detox. Right.
Yeah, I mean, he shelved it, and he
shelved it.
The Compton album, which was obviously a tribute to because the film came out, and I guess he was influenced by that.
And I guess when you have all the time in the world, and perspective changes, and what you or I may maybe write as a short story today, I don't know, will we feel that in 2 or 3 years? Maybe not. And I guess as a recording artist, he didn't feel right putting those out. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a musician, but I mean, I do write, and I know that my perspective from 15 years ago was certainly not what it is now.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you write a short story today, you revisit it in a month, you could feel completely different.
Yeah. So I can understand why he didn't release that, and he walked away from it. And this is a guy, Dr. Dre is a guy who's great at walking away from things. He's just like, F it, man. Like, he walked away from Death Row when he was involved with Suge Knight, when he thought he was going to get himself killed, and he probably would have, hanging out with Suge Knight, because that guy is just, petrifying.
Yeah.
So he walked away from that, didn't want anything, dude. Guy just walked away. He didn't take anything. Okay.
He could have really fought for.
Yeah. He's like, nah, man, I'm out. So he starts Aftermath, and he's recording this album, this long-awaited follow-up, where everybody is waiting for it, and he walks away from that too. So this is a guy who can say no. He said no to a ton of endorsements. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
Okay. So by the time when he comes up with the idea for Beats with Jimmy Iovine, and that's a great sequence in and of itself. I mean, they kind of start with the Beats story, and obviously they end with the Beats story.
Yeah.
But he was talking to Jimmy Iovine about, hey, I got some company wants me to sell sneakers, and Iovine's like, sneakers? Fuck sneakers, man. You should be selling speakers. And just from that little conversation,
from that germ of an idea,
exactly, they became billionaires. I mean, they became billionaires. I mean, that was it. I mean, Apple, they pretty much went into business with Apple. That's, I mean, on the cover of Fortune magazine. So it's kind of funny how a guy like Jimmy Iovine can say something like that and make it a reality a week later.
He seems to have that kind of intuitive gift to know, exactly what is going to be successful, whether it's a song or, some kind of, business deal. I mean, it's...
yeah, Jack. Could you imagine doing that, huh?
Yeah, we it's a talent I wish I had. But,
we're over here slaving away on this podcast, and we need a guy like Jimmy Iovine to just say, yeah, you know what you really need? What, Jimmy? What do we need? So I think that kind of like wrap this one up, Jack. I think I want to tell people if you're interested in watching this and you have HBO, it'll be on demand. And if you have HBO Go or HBO Now, you'll be able to find it there. It's not going to go anywhere. That's a great thing about HBO. They keep all their content up.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. I think maybe next, Jack, we'll talk about. We were going to talk about Spider-Man: Homecoming, Jack, but I don't know. I don't know if that ship has sailed, but maybe.
We'll see. I mean, I know there are certain things coming down the pipe that we can definitely talk about. There are definitely some exciting things happening.
All right, so you can find me on Twitter at Anthony Venutolo. Jack, where can people find you?
You can find me at JackLugo1.
Okay, at Jack. And, Jack, I will say this, and I'll tell everybody, we are working on a website. It's not gonna win any awards yet, but, it takes time.
The $3 billion deal isn't anywhere close at this point.
Right. I mean, it takes time. I'm going to tell people, don't believe these commercials. You know, I'm building this with Squarespace. Oh, how it's so easy. Wix, you know, drag and drop. You know, it's not as intuitive as it sounds. Believe me.
You just blew our Squarespace.
I did. I just blew the.
We're never going to get a deal with Squarespace now.
No, probably not. But you know what? It looks. I'll tell you this though. It's beautiful looking. It will be a good looking website. So. All right, Jack, I'll hit you up soon, and we'll be back soon with another episode of the Pop Culture Juke Joint. Jack, have a great night.
You too.
Enjoyed this episode of the Pop Culture Juke Joint? Then don't forget to tip the barkeep by subscribing and reviewing us on iTunes and Stitcher. Also, for some sizzling noir tales, head on over to Amazon to check out Anthony's hard-boiled fiction, available in print, digital, and audiobook formats. On social media, follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony Venutolo or like his page on Facebook. For everything else, please visit his webpage at www.anthonyvenutolo.com. We'll see you next week.